Hi, I'm just going to pray before I start this, because this is about the third attempt. So I think it's important. This is the Hampstead children's Russian grandparents being interviewed in the very early stages of the children being taken and giving first-hand testimony, very detailed testimony. This is important. Thank you to the campaigner researcher who archived all the Hampstead videos that have been scrubbed off the internet, and thank you to my Lithuanian colleague who has more accurately translated the Russian into subtitles on this version. I accidentally went ahead and started commentating on the original version, which has value and I'll include it in a blog, but I was ahead of myself. It was not the updated subtitles. So here we go. And please share this far and wide. Pray for the children and any people with power and influence in the goal of having a justice for these children and safety. Please use this and mirror it and do whatever you need to do with it. Okay, here we go. So here we go. Now this is Belinda Mackenzie interviewing them. I spoke about her in the last analysis, which I'll include in a blog. But for now, let's just get the accurate translation of what the grandparents were actually saying.
You suddenly had a full-blown police van with 10 off.
No, just because I'm having such trouble, I'm just going to check I'm recording. Yes, I'm recording. Sorry about that, guys, but this has just been quite difficult to get out. Right, here we go. There we go.
Маленьким ребенком.
No, wait a minute, sorry.
Мы подготовили.
Sorry.
Главное.
It's very much part of this whole story, and hopefully will be in the future when hopefully their grandchildren can be with them in Russia.
Now I'll put the link to this video, original video with the accurate subtitles. I'll put it
So I just want to know really what
I'll put it in the description.
Has happened regarding their experience of perhaps being on the edge of this police harassment and security surveillance which has been going on in the last 2 or 3 weeks. So when did that start and what's been happening?
So the granddad says, most importantly, we came to take our children, our grandchildren.
Мы приехали, самое главное, забрать своих детей, своих внуков.
As our idyllic, happy family life has been destroyed in a flash by some sort of evil powers. I don't even know what to call them.
И вот эту семейную идиллию разрушили в одночасье. Какие-то силы нехорошие, я не знаю назвать. Я не...
Black powers, says Grandma. She's talking satanic.
Очень в курсе дела, что случилось на самом деле.
Granddad says, I'm not totally aware of what's really going on here.
Но я приехал с одной целью.
But I came here with one goal, to take my grandchildren with me as quickly as possible back to the family.
Как можно быстрее забрать внуков в семью.
We have prepared all the documents necessary to have custody so that they give us the children. Now, at this stage, I believe Ella's fled the country in fear of being nefariously arrested, unlawfully arrested and silenced. So the grandparents are trying to stand in loco parentis as kinship, as kin to, the grandchildren. Angie were very comfortable and very familiar with their grandparents, so...
Мы подготовили все документы для опекунства, пусть нам отдадут детей, и дальше
So all this court burden, they can make it last as long as they like, 1 year, 2, 3, 5 years. They just want to get the children safe. But it is now almost, well, it was 6 years in September last year. So we're coming on the 7th year.
Эти судебные тяжбы, пусть они продолжаются год, 2, 3, 5. Я не знаю, как они долго. Они уже долго длятся.
I don't know how long they'll be dragging it out for.
Полгода дети.
They've already been dragging it out for long enough, and for half a year already, 6 months, the children have been living in a family of strangers. This was the same cry of the heart of Dr. Diedrich Siegert. Why should my grandson be with strangers when I'm here and we love him, and so on.
Находятся в чужой семье.
Под арестом, собственно.
Да, я могу
And Granny says under some sort of arrest.
представить себя маленьким.
Grandad says yes, and I can imagine myself living in a stranger's family while my loving mother's still alive.
Ребенком, чтобы я находился в чужой семье, при живой маме.
Любящие, да.
Grandma says loving mother.
10 лет воспитывала.
Granddad, who educated her children for 10 years and was a good mother and now suddenly became a bad mother. In other words, it's difficult to comprehend for a normal human being.
Всегда была хорошая, и вдруг в одночасье стала плохой. То есть это как бы...
In other words, yeah, it's difficult to comprehend for a normal human being. That is not normal, you know.
В голове это не укладывается нормального человека. Это очень ненормально.
So for the past 2 or 3 weeks, you felt that you were under surveillance from outside the house. In fact, there seemed to be some sort of presence in the house immediately opposite, with people looking through the windows and blinds at your front door to see you coming in and going out and who was arriving and what was happening. And that was obviously quite uncomfortable for you, that you tried to ignore it. But then on Thursday evening last week, things took a rather more serious turn, because you suddenly had a full-blown police van with 10 officers outside the house, and they came to the front door. Perhaps you can tell us what happened at that point.
Yeah, on Thursday the 12th of February, that would have been 2015. At around 4 p.m, maybe a bit later, 4:30, I was reading as usual.
В районе 16:00, может позже, 16:30, я, как обычно, читаю, потому что делать нечего в ожидании этой ситуации судов.
There's nothing else to do while waiting for this situation with the courts. So February 2015 is technically when the original disclosure videos were released, although my research and others has found evidence that the original disclosure videos, at least some of them, were released in Russia, probably November 2014, and on the dark web, December 2014. So I do feel badly for Sabine McNeill serving 9 out of a 12-year sentence in HMP Bronzefield. I think she was a patsy. And suddenly I hear some noise outside the house, and as I looked out of the window from the first floor where we lived, and I see the picture.
Слышу некий шум. Окно мне приоткрыто было. Я выглядываю, когда в окно со 2-го этажа, и вижу картину такую.
Это такое было страшно.
Grandma says it was a horrific view. When I looked out of the window and I saw this vivid picture out of my window, everyone was in police uniform.
Зрелище, когда посмотрела в окно, я увидела такую живописную картину. Все в форме полицейские, много мужчин, здоровых, крепких.
A lot of very well-built men, 2 or 3 women. Some people were in civilian outfits. Some were part of the crowd.
2 или 3 женщины, в гражданском какая-то часть людей. И все так стояли и с улыбкой.
And everyone was standing there with a smile, or I would say a smirk, on their faces.
Таким каким-то, знаете, неприятным выражением.
Some sort of, unpleasant facial expression. So yes, in English we'd say a smirk.
Лица. начали требовать,
They started demanding us to open the door.
чтобы мы открыли дверь. Я начала говорить, насколько я могу
I
говорить,
started speaking to them as much as I could. I don't understand you. What do you want? What's your problem?
что я вас не понимаю, что вы хотите, какая ваша проблема.
I speak English quite well.
Я неплохо говорю по-английски. Да они громко и настырно.
They were shouting loudly and forcefully to call someone who speaks English. Oh, so perhaps that translation should realise I don't speak English very well. So they were shouting loudly and forcefully to call somebody who speaks English. Maybe she actually meant she does speak English quite well.
Кричат, что позовите, кто говорит на английском. Мы знаем, что по меньшей...
They were saying, we know at least 3 people have entered your house. And they would also have known from surveillance from the house over the road that it was Abraham, Ella and a barrister.
В мере 3 человека вошло в ваш дом.
Literally not too long before that happened, as we've seen this already more than once.
Буквально перед этим мы видели уже неоднократно, мы уже
We've already understood that we were under some sort of surveillance.
поняли, что мы находимся под присмотром,
Under some extra attention, and that we were being followed. I mean, it sounds like a movie, but Special Branch have been all over the Hampstead case right from the get-go. This is no small case. Just because elites, MPs and royals weren't named, I suspect that this, the unfolding of this case would collapse part of the worldwide child pornography cult and snuff movie distribution and drugs in there as well. So it's, and money laundering, don't forget the money laundering. The money laundering does tie back to the elites and the likes of, you know, everybody connected to Barbara Kahan, including Karen Irving of Hampstead Research, including Ricky Dearman, including Finchley Road. So much work has gone into the money laundering side of things.
Пристальным вниманием, что за нами следят. И, видимо, когда вот дочь приехала...
It looks like when our daughter came home, the people overlooking our house called her straight away.
Домой. И сразу ей позвонили наблюдающие люди за нашим домом. И вот и подъехала сразу полиция.
And then the police turned up in no time. So the surveillance team called Ella's phone the minute she arrived at the house, and then the police showed up.
У нас...
Our daughter came with her barrister, lawyer.
Дочь подъехала с лоером, с адвокатом, который...
He was consulting her and helping her with different cases for court cases that were upcoming.
Принимал у нее дела, консультировал ее по поводу будущих судов. Тогда подошел этот...
Different issues for the court cases that were upcoming. Then the lawyer went ahead and asked them, what do you want? What do you need?
Вот лоер и сказал, что вы хотите, что вам нужно. Нам нужно поговорить...
They said, we need to speak with Ella. That part was inaudible.
Но он говорит, хорошо, поговорить.
He then said, okay, if you want to speak to her, invite her to the police station.
Так, пригласите полицейский участок, она завтра к вам приедет. Нет, открывайте сейчас.
She'll come over to you tomorrow.
Если вы не откроете, мы будем...
They said, no, open the door now.
Взламывать дверь. Вот. И
If you don't open the door, we're going to force entry. We're going to break it down.
начали угрожать, что будем взламывать дверь, или пускай она выйдет, откроет
Then they started threatening us that they will break down the door, let her come out, open the door.
дверь. Продолжалось это где-то в течение
It lasted for about half an hour. It must have been just horrendous.
получаса. Такое давление, они подходили к двери, стучали.
This pressure and then coming to the door, knocking at the door.
То один человек вступал в переговоры, то другой, то мужчина.
One person was negotiating and then another came to also negotiate. A man and then a woman. It was like a siege. It was like a siege.
То женщина. Что вы хотите? Нет, мы просто хотим побеседовать.
We said, what do you want? They said, oh, we just want to talk, open the door.
Вот откройте.
It's weird. 10 policemen came just to talk to one delicate young woman, the mother says, crying.
Ну, странно, что побеседовать приехали 10 человек полицейские на такую, чтобы поговорить с такой хрупкой девочкой.
They started ramming the door with this iron thing. Wow, I didn't know that. So they actually started to try and force entry. Wow. Even with a barrister saying, my client will come to the station tomorrow to talk to you. Wow.
Ну, они начали стучать эту железку.
Started pulling the door.
Двери, дергать дверь и говорить, что мы сейчас взломаем дверь.
Saying, we will break in any moment.
Тогда лоер спросил, а что...
Then the lawyer asked them, do you have grounds to do this? What grounds do you have to force entry?
У вас есть основания? Какие у вас есть основания?
Do you have an arrest warrant?
Взламывать дверь. У вас что, есть ордер на арест?
They said, no, we've got a different warrant, following which we have the right to break down the door and enter the house.
Нет, но у нас есть другое положение, при котором мы имеем право взламывать двери и входить в дом.
And just because this is an important point, when my house was raided to take my computers, laptops and phone, I asked the same question, because unfortunately my son let them in, but I said to them, did you have a warrant? Does your warrant include forced entry? And one of the detectives, the female, said, no, but we could have gone and got that. But the detective sergeant, at the same time, they both answered. She said no, and he said yes. He said yes, and then she said no, but we could have got it. And then he's like, well, blah, blah, blah. And it's a very moot point. It's a very important point as to whether they have a warrant at all that's lawful, and if it includes permission for forced entry, with no threat. No threat to life.
Если человек...
Now, here's the grounds they were trying to quote. If a person is a dangerous criminal who's a danger to society and the government, then we have a right to break down the door. They're talking about terrorists. This mother was never a terrorist, nor the grandparents, to the best of my knowledge. And what was the danger to society and the government for the grandchildren to have disclosed horrendous ritual abuse and pornography filming and distribution and snuff movies and so on? The only danger to society and the government is if they don't protect the children and champion the truth, surely.
Опасный, особенно опасный преступник, который представляет угрозу для общества, то мы и для государства, то мы имеем право взламывать дверь.
So it was very clear. Luckily, my daughter managed to escape through the back door, the backyard. Now they'll go on to say that they advised, almost pushed Ella out of the back door and told her to run. Which, with hindsight, which is always 20/20, I do wonder if Ella had stayed, maybe the children would have been given to the grandparents and she could have fought, even, God forbid, from prison, but at least the children would have been safe.
В общем-то, все уже было понятно, и поэтому, к счастью, дочери удалось задними дворами уйти, потому что мы
Because we told her that they want to arrest her.
Сказали, что тебя арестуют, тебя сейчас арестуют, тебя хотят арестовать. Такое количество.
Like, how can a mother take her children to disclose satanic ritual abuse, and then the mother is deemed a threat to society and the government? Riddle me that. Having in mind the number of policemen that arrived, they did not come for nothing. So clearly they came with an intended arrest.
Полицейских приехало не просто так.
Я сказал, чтобы дверь не открывали ни в каком случае.
Granddad had said, do not open the door at any cost.
Не открывать, и тебе надо уходить, Мы начали ее потом.
Grandma said to Ella, don't open the door, you need to go. So in some ways, Ella was more supported than a lot of people that get these ambush arrests at the door. She had her barrister there, her boyfriend at the time there, and her parents there. Whether, you know, as I say, hindsight is a great thing, but in that kind of trauma and emergency, Ella fled.
Сталкивать к этому. Она ушла, к счастью, и тут же через несколько минут
We started pushing her towards running away. So the parents are saying, we told her, run, Forrest, run. Thankfully, she escaped, and straight away, literally after about 10 minutes, they started, it says, retrieving in groups around the neighbourhood yards. Regrouping, I would say. They started regrouping around the neighbourhood yards. So somehow they figured out that Ella had escaped. I wonder how.
буквально минут через 10 они начали группами отходить по соседним дворам, зашли в соседний двор.
They went to our neighbour's garden. We have a workshop over there.
Там у нас есть мастерская и, значит, гараж.
Grandad said it's actually a car garage, an automobile garage. It's curious, why would they have a workshop in their neighbour's garden? But anyway, Grandad says it's a car garage.
Автомобильный. И через него они как-то там прошли.
Someone says that through there they somehow went to neighbours' yards. So the police were... I'm very curious, how did they know Ella escaped? But they started to spread out amongst the neighbouring gardens.
Соседние дворы, там начали разговаривать с людьми.
Then they started talking to people, most likely questioning them.
Опрос, видно, делать. И начали заглядывать, уже появилось освещение, им уже не было видно, они с фонариком.
It was getting dark, so they started using torches to look through rubbish bins. They would just literally spread out, search everything.
По мусорным бакам проверяли, может быть, она спряталась в мусорном баке.
They were checking to see if she was hiding there. Like, I suppose even to see if she was... Wow, this is just like a horror movie. See if she was even hiding in wheelie bins, for God's sake.
Баке где-то. Но она, к счастью, с большим трудом ушла.
With a lot of effort, she escaped.
Ну, они...
They were mingling, the policemen around the house. Mingling's probably the wrong word. They were loitering, I don't know, around the house for a while talking, and then they understood.
Еще какое-то время были возле дома, еще переговаривались, потом они поняли, видно.
They were driving around many times, so this is a frozen memory. This was traumatic for the grandparents. Can you imagine how it was for Ella? Because the grandparents are remembering every single flash-by-flash detail of what happened. Grandad says they were driving around many times. Yes, driving around many times, says Grandad. For an hour and a half, they were driving around our house and circling the area. Combing the area, we would say in British police terms.
Им сказали, что они видели там людей каких-то.
Maybe they were told that someone had seen some people, and apparently,
видимо, они сделали выводы, что ее.
They came to the conclusion that she was gone. I bet they were raging.
Уже нет. Но у нас собака, и собака.
We have a dog, and our dog was acting nervous all night.
Собака всю ночь беспокоилась. Она все время
sitting all the time on the third step of the stairs before our entrance door, before the front door, barking all the time. So it seems the surveillance was kept up all night.
Сидела на третьей ступеньке на лестнице перед дверью входной и все время лаяла. Она все время поднималась и опять спускалась.
She would come up the stairs, then go back down the stairs and kept barking all the time. So clearly the dogs aren't stupid. There was somebody outside all night.
И все время лаяла. Мы так думаем, что там еще.
We were thinking that there were some people around there coming closer, but we were not reacting to them anymore. They were starting to get desensitized to the trauma. This was February. The children had been taken in September 2014. October, November, December, January, February. This is 5 months later, so this trauma is ongoing.
Какие-то люди были, или подходили, ну, мы уже не реагировали, да, мы уже в кустах спрятались, вот.
Maybe they were hiding somewhere. This kind of situation has been going on for a long time now, so they'd absolutely noticed they were under heavy-duty surveillance, at least for the past 2 weeks, so they just, once they knew their daughter was safely gone, they say that they were able to ignore it.
В общем, такая ситуация длится очень давно, и дочь наша не имеет...
Our daughter does not stand an opportunity to live in our home. She's in hiding. Oh, right. So our daughter is not able to stay in the home. Now, it's interesting they refer to it as our home. This was Ella's address in Hampstead, where she lived with the children. I do wonder, did her parents own it? Or are they just calling it our home because it's where they've been staying for a while? That's curious.
Нет возможности жить у себя дома, она скрывается.
And Granddad says, well, she's free, in trouble, a mother of 3.
Пока она
на свободе,
да, в бегах.
Называется
Мама 3 детей.
Grandma says, on the run.
в бегах.
10 лет была.
Granddad said, no, she hadn't been arrested, and I have maintained for 6 years that I don't believe the British authorities want to arrest Ella or Abraham because any court case would allow discovery of all the evidence, and I don't think they want that. Abraham's been very open. I think Abraham and Ella are not together anymore, but Abraham's been very open about his location, and in this day and age, Interpol or Europol or any of these authorities could very easily track Ella if they seriously wanted to. So Grandad says for 10 years she was an ideal mother, and now somehow she's turned into a big criminal. Now, I have challenged the ideal mother. There's definitely some codependence going on. She had had 3 children to 2 cult members, allegedly unaware, and her children had been abused, according to their testimony, from infancy. And although Ella did struggle, and I can absolutely empathise, she thought it was something to do with the breakup of the relationship, or that her parenting wasn't right, or she couldn't put her finger on it. She took them for counselling, and she kept trying to see what she was doing wrong. But at the same time, it's hard to believe that at 8 and 9, the children had been abused their entire lives, and Ella had not joined the dots. So I wouldn't say ideal mother. I do think in many ways the children are a credit to her. They were very open, very adorable, very honest, very intelligent, beautiful, beautiful children. But I don't think we can use the word ideal, although one would like to think one's parents would always think that their children were ideal parents.
Идеальная мама, сейчас она получилась какой-то большой преступник. И для общества, и для государства это просто отрицательный элемент.
For society and the government, she's turned into an unwanted element, unwanted, what is it the nuns used to say? Undesirables. My sister got in trouble at La Santa Union Convent in Bath for meeting undesirables outside the school gates. It's just funny to an absurd, tragic level.
Это просто
В таком свете выставляют.
очень смешно. До абсурда доходит. Иногда вот эти силовые структуры, они создают ситуацию.
Sometimes these structures of power are creating situations when they force a person into hiding.
Заставляет человека бежать, прятаться и так далее. То есть
Загнали в угол ее, загоняют в угол.
Grandma says yes, they've cornered her. They've hunted her, really, like an animal. And the smirking policeman outside that thought they were going to force entry and disappear. Ella, you know, should rather question themselves and their motives and morals and conduct.
За свою жизнь не видел столько слез.
Granddad, in my entire life I've not seen as many tears as I'm seeing now.
Сколько я вижу сейчас. Вот
My wife is crying daily. This is inhumane. And you can see the frustration where this gentleman, obviously well educated, you know, upper middle class Russian gentleman, he wants to be logical about this and just say, give me my grandchildren, go ahead with your crazy court case. I don't care if it takes you 5 years, let us make sure the children are safe. And logic didn't resolve this, and nor did emotion resolve this. This has been the biggest cover-up, I would say, certainly since Jimmy Savile, and possibly greater than that. And even the cover-up of the 80s, you know, with the Cleveland case and so on.
жена вот ежедневно плачет. Идет обесчеловечивание, то есть.
Our idyllic family is completely broken now. Again, the idyllic. Okay.
Семейная наша идиллия сломана напрочь, то есть.
I do not know how to recover it. I only see one option, and this is the frustration. There's no sense to any of this.
Не знаю, как это восстановится. То есть я единственное только вижу выход. Я человек.
I'm an atheist, very much an atheist.
Атеист, глубокий атеист. В этом
I never believed in God, but now I'm forced to pray to God.
Я ни в какую никогда не верил, но я сейчас вынужден молить Бога что-то, чтобы Он нам помог.
For his help, says the grandma.
And I believe I've heard that the lawyer asked them to see their warrant for the arrest that they were about to carry out, and they didn't have the paperwork with them. So obviously, since they're now under scrutiny from the whole of the British public in this matter, they couldn't then continue with their operation. That was his version of the event. So they had to withdraw. So it was just as well the lawyer was on the premises and was able to challenge them on this point. And in the meantime, as we said, unfortunately tomorrow the grandparents were to have had contact with their grandchildren, and sadly that's been cancelled. And this is what concerns them mostly, because they're here to be with their grandchildren and offer them comfort and hope of release. And in this regard, I picked up from them when we were talking earlier that they noticed a change in the children between the two times that they saw them in December and how they were in the January contact session, middle of January. And perhaps, Ludmilla, you can tell me how your grandchildren were different in January to how they were in December.
Grandma replies, now the children were very comfortable with their Russian grandparents. The mother certainly used to visit quite often. The children used to go to Russia, and the children were bilingual. So, yeah, Grandma, when we saw the children the first time, when they came over, I wonder where that was. They were, of course, very happy. I don't know where they came over to in December.
Когда мы первый раз увидели детей, когда приехали, ну, дети были счастливы, конечно, они не ожидали, и мы были счастливы.
And we were very happy to see them.
Их видеть, дети радостные, прыгали.
The children were joyful. Granddad says joy through tears.
Как у нас все время сидели, ну, нам другого ничего мы не хотели.
Grandma says we didn't want to scare them. We were not crying, we were smiling.
детей пугать, мы не плакали, мы улыбались, мы делали вид, что...
We were pretending this was a joyful situation to have a visit with the children in December when they'd been taken forcibly into care in the September after disclosures.
Это такое событие,
We were pretending that this is temporary so the children wouldn't be scared.
Что это временно, чтобы детям не было так страшно. Но когда мы были два последних...
But the last two times we met them, we already noticed the time before, in January, that the children were unrecognisable. Yeah. Reprogrammed, drugged on pharmaceuticals, traumatised and silenced, in my opinion.
Контакта с детьми. Мы обратили внимание и прошлый раз, и в этот раз, когда были в январе, что дети стали неузнаваемы, они запуганы.
They were obviously frightened, they were scared to talk about anything. And this is just a huge issue with the supervised contact when children are in state care and both the adults and the children are threatened not to address any subjects other than the most bland.
Явно, они испуганы, они боятся о чем-либо говорить, они шепот.
They were whispering when they wanted sweets or fruits.
Там говорят, там, мы принесли конфеты, там, фрукты.
Saying, Grandma, it's not allowed for us, it's prohibited, it's forbidden, they whispered.
Это нам, бабушка, нельзя, это нам запретили, это нельзя, шепотом говорит.
They were saying, we can't, Grandma, we're not allowed.
Нельзя, бабушка, нет. Я говорю, так что не доставать даже из сумки.
So I said, well, what? Why? Well, I can't even reach out for it or say it out loud that I brought you some treats.
Что я принесла вам гостинцы. Нет, нет.
They said, no, Grandma, don't.
Нет, бабушка, не надо. И дети прямо смотрят.
And they were looking at the floor, not even making eye contact.
В пол. Они не смотрят уже на нас. Они боятся, как будто им сказали.
It looked like they were scared, like somebody had told them to act this way and not act the other way. And
Сказали, что ведите себя так, не ведите себя так, и они.
They were in such an emotional state that they couldn't speak to us openly, and it was obvious that they were confused. Something was not right.
Не могут, они в таком состоянии, они не могут и к нам открыто относиться. Это и видно, что они запуганы, они боятся чего-то.
Даже поворачивают.
Grandad, they even turned around and asked, "Can we have this? Can we have that?" They asked the social workers when they were offered a piece of fruit or a sweetie by their grandparents, "Are we allowed? Are we allowed?"
И спрашивает, а это можно?
Даже поворачивается.
Grandma says they even turned to this woman, most likely she's a policewoman or a social worker, I would say, and they're asking her, there's also a translator there, and they come to her and ask.
К этой женщине, которая сидит там, это, видимо, полицейский в гражданском, и у нее спрашивает, и переводчик здесь же сидит, и спрашивает, подходит, спрашивает к ней, говорит, а вот это можно спросить?
Can we, are we allowed this? Are we allowed that? Can we have this? It's like the children are not ours. So the children were trying to break the bond between family, which is often what happens to children that are forcibly removed from families.
А это можно взять. То есть дети.
When she says the children, it's like the children are not ours. It's like they're unrecognizable as our flesh and blood in the way that they're behaving.
Дети не наши. Дети у нас раскреплены.
Our children are confident, open, not afraid of anything, which you have to. They obviously were afraid to disclose for the first few years of their lives, but to a great degree, if you've watched any of the children's disclosures, especially the original ones before they were, in my opinion, medicated, very, very confident, open, fluent children.
Открытые, ничего не боятся.
They were always questioning everything easily and freely.
Жизни, всегда с любым вопросом, всегда открытые.
And here they are, simply afraid to even make eye contact. I had no idea what was going on.
О чем-то спросить, а здесь просто даже боятся на нас смотреть, чтобы не знаю, что это значит.
These children are frightened, the children are unrecognizable, it's difficult for them.
Дети запуганы. Одно слово, дети неузнаваемые. Детям очень тяжело, дети просятся.
They're asking to come home. When can we come home? And still asking very quietly because they're afraid.
Домой. Когда мы уже домой? И то спрашивают очень потихоньку, боятся.
We want to go home, we want to go home, we already want to go home, but they understand that nobody's supposed to hear that. So the children are whispering, we want to come home, we want to come home, why aren't we home?
Хотим домой, мы уже хотим домой. Но они понимают, что этого никто не должен слышать. Видно, им это...
It was forbidden to them, for them. And it was forbidden for us to talk about anything, of anything.
Запретили. Ну, и нам запретили спрашивать о чем бы то ни было, что там вам хорошо, не обижали вас. Ни про что. Мы по такой подписке.
They, the police, gave us a big list of questions. Again, this could have been social workers. It's interesting where they keep quoting the police here, because I don't know why. If it was police, that's something wrong there. A big list of questions for us to sign, the questions that we were not allowed to ask our grandchildren. For example, how do you feel? Is Daddy hurting you? How is it going at school? For 4 months, the children hadn't been in school.
Взяли с нас такой, дали нам целый лист, много вопросов, какие мы не имеем права детям задавать. Как вы себя чувствуете, это обижает ли вас? Единственное, что мы спрашивали, как вы в школе. Они в школу не ходили 4 месяца. Представляете, дети 4 месяца не ходили в школу. Они пошли в школу за 3 дня до Рождества.
Can you imagine, for 4 months the children didn't go to school until 3 days before Christmas? Obviously, education is very highly valued in some countries, and obviously some people are not aware of school not being a safe place of education, so the grandparents are just horrified that the children were kept out of school all that time. And I would assert that it was because they were not just because of the assertions and disclosures they'd made. They could have been placed in a different school, but the trouble was they were still disclosing, and I think they were basically kept on lockdown until they stopped. In my opinion.
И были очень рады, мы уже пошли в школу.
The children were very happy that they finally went to a school, and all we were asking them was, who are your friends?
На чем мы спрашивали, кто у вас друзья, появились ли у вас друзья?
Have you made new friends? Who do you sit beside at school? Just banal questions.
Как вы в школе, с кем ты сидишь за партой?
We could only play with them. We can't ask them anything. We can't ask, are you being bullied? Are you not being bullied? No welfare questions.
Играемся, и все, ни о чем не можем спросить, обижают вас, не обижают. Очень тяжело.
We can't ask anything. It's very hard.
I think really what these loving grandparents are saying to the British public is, please support us in our struggle to retrieve our grandchildren and take them home to Russia, where they will be safe, where they have prepared every possible aspect of a nice life for children growing up. They have a lovely home in a nice part of Russia. There's mountain activity, there is sea activity, there is all sorts of sports and games around in the town. They have a grand piano. They can give all sorts of after-school activities. There's a very good school in the town, and they are very confident that they can help the children to recover from their trauma by keeping them very happy and active.
Privilege doesn't keep a child safe. These children were in possibly the most exclusive suburb of London, Hampstead. They were in a school that looked to be perfect. They had a very privileged lifestyle. Children can be being abused no matter what the outward appearance is, and that's what that's what people really need to grasp.
And giving them literally a new life, so gradually the trauma of their childhood will be erased, and this is what they really hope. So,
in my experience as a survivor at 63, it's never fully erased.
So I'm just going to ask them about how they want to resolve this from now on.
So Grandad again, he's got a plan, he's a man, he's got logic. He says, I will start from me being a non-believer, but I want to ask God, this touches me, I want to ask God for this situation to be resolved as soon as possible, and that our children, their grandchildren, should not be or would not be living with strangers.
С того, что я неверующий человек, но хотел бы просить Бога, чтобы это разрешилось как можно быстрее, чтобы наши дети не были у чужих людей, то есть это какие бы они...
Because no matter how beautiful and how good the people may be, the foster families, they, the children, will never feel at home.
Красивые, хорошие не были люди, то есть они не будут так, как дома.
Like at home with their grandma and grandpa, meaning we have prepared all the documents in the full scale, or we've taken care of every detail to take kinship custody, while the battle between Ella and Abraham was sorted, which would have been the most humane solution in my opinion. But it didn't happen that way. And again, I ask, you can look at the previous commentary I did with the original subtitles. Why did the Russian embassy at first express an interest in this case and then withdrew? I'm very curious about that.
Вот у бабушки с дедушкой. То есть я хотел бы, мы все документы подготовили в полном объеме по опекунству.
We want to file custody for the children to be with us as soon as possible.
Мы хотим, чтобы в ближайшее время оформили на нас опекунство. Мы забираем детей.
We want custody to be finalized as soon as possible.
И
Да, мы хотим.
We're going to take the children. You see, this is just sheer willpower couldn't save these children, nor could their disclosures. We are going to take the children, says the grandpa, and these courts may continue as long as they want, even for a decade. This is a completely different pace, so the children's childhood can never be recovered. The court cases can drag on for a decade and more, but the cost is the children.
Суды, пересуды, пусть они продолжаются там десятилетия, пусть даже. То есть нас это совсем другая серия. А вот мы хотели бы забрать детей.
We would like to take the children. We will always give the children love and care, and I can guarantee that nobody will be able to give them what we can give them. And this is the argument that, and it's borne out by statistical and sociological research, that unless a family is abusing or enabling the abuse of children, the children will flourish most with their own flesh and blood family.
Мы детям дадим всегда и любовь, и ласку, и я могу гарантировать, что никто никогда не даст то, что мы дадим своим внукам.
Мы хотим забрать.
Grandma says we want to take the children back to Russia, and we've already found a school for them. It's an English school.
Детей. Мы уже определили, в какую школу дети будут ходить. Это английская школа. Она.
By recent reviews, it's being seen as it's regarded as the best school in Russia.
Считается по недавним опросам лучшая школа России.
The teachers are also the best teachers in Russia. This is the school that our children went to, and she refers to their daughters. So a question I asked in the last video is, where is Ella's sister? And why has she not stepped forward in any way for her niece and nephew?
И ряд преподавателей, там тоже лучшие учителя России, школа, которую заканчивали наши дети, с ряд предметов.
There are quite a few subjects that are taught in English, just only at that school. It's a very good school. They're grasping at straws. They don't realise that if the children's allegations of a satanic ritual abuse cult based in Hampstead, London, England are true, which I believe they are, and millions believe they are, this is just immaterial how fantastic the setup is for the children to be rescued into. Because at any cost, it seems the children had to be silenced again.
Метод там на английском языке преподается. Это очень хорошая школа.
They'll be going to that school. It's about 5 minutes away. There's a music school where our granddaughter can play violin.
В эту школу они будут ходить. Рядом минут 5 ходьбы, 7 от нас находится музыкальная школа. Дети занимаются на скрипке.
Спортивная школа.
И находится музыкальная школа, в которой дети будут...
We don't know, if that's what the children want. We've got a grand piano in our house, which has been recently restored and tuned. It's bizarre in the light of what the children were disclosing. But I know they're coming from a good place, it seems. And in the Russian culture and different cultures, Chinese culture as well, education and achievement, whether in gymnastics or science or languages or whatever it might be, music, it's almost like a religion, because those, if they're primarily communist countries, but the human spirit has to have an avenue for zeal, and it's often channeled into achievement in these countries. It's just a general observation.
Будут учиться. Мы не знаем, как изъявит ли он желание. У нас большой рояль концертный стоит в холле. Он сейчас отреставрирован и настроен. Был настройщик, мы все сделали.
It's working perfectly well, and Elisa is playing violin with a very good teacher. Lessons have been paid for. Oh God, this is so sad.
Он рабочий и занимается на скрипке. Очень хорошего преподавателя. Оплачены уроки, но, к сожалению...
But unfortunately, the girl is not playing her violin at this moment. No.
Вот девочка не занимается сейчас. Скрипку мы ей отдали, но она без учителя, и она говорит...
We've given her the violin, but she says she can't play the violin without a teacher.
Я не могу без учителя. Будут ходить...
Gabriel would be going there as well. Would he be interested, if he's interested in music? But he seems to like astronomy, mathematics, planets and technology, being a boy. And Elisa said she would like to learn violin like her older brother, James.
Если захочет, будет заниматься музыкой, но нас больше любят математику, астрологию, планеты,
So this is a cultural thing, clearly. I mean, no child wants to live with their grandparents, although obviously they would choose that rather than be in lockdown state care. And, many grandchildren, my grandchildren adore me. Many grandchildren adore their grandparents, but the ideal is to be with at least one good parent.
Технику, как мальчик. Она давно говорила, что она хочет, как и старший ее братик, учиться на скрипке. Мама ей купила скрипку.
Her mum bought her a violin and she found her a teacher. It wasn't cheap. The same one that was teaching her older brother. The teacher's not cheap. This is just kind of degenerating into... You can understand the distress and the trauma.
И она ходит к тому же преподавателю. Кстати, не дешевый преподаватель, не дешевые это уроки.
They would have been learning music privately because in a school there's a big load on the teachers. That's how our children were studying. So private music lessons are very privileged, but privilege didn't protect these children.
Преподаватель, который учил старшего братика. У нас рядом находится, заниматься они будут музыкой частным образом, потому что школа большая нагрузка, так и наши дети учились, они занимались частным образом музыки, и у нас находится в этой же школе.
Now I don't know if she's at this stage talking about Ella and her sister, but she's saying they were learning music privately, and in this very school near us is a sports school with all the children taking taekwondo classes, swimming, tennis, football, judo.
Рядом с нами, где музыкальная школа, находится спортивная школа. Дети очень спортивные. Они занимаются тэквондо, плаванием, теннис большой, футбол, теннис, дзюдо. Они очень спортивные. Мама все время, каждый день.
Okay, so she is talking about Ella's children. That mother used to take them to do all sorts of sports every day. And my teenage years were like that. I did hockey, netball, kung fu karate, ballet, tap, manically busy every day. So and I suppose to some extent it distracted me from the abuse. It didn't compensate for it or heal it, but
Они где-то занимаются спортом, и тоже это все оплачиваемые уроки.
Every day the children were doing different types of sports. Also, all these lessons are paid for, and children are busy and always in a good mood. Sometimes it's manic. Like my daughter's discovered this, that sometimes you can have your children too busy. But look, let me not pick holes. There was a mother trying to give her children every opportunity.
И дети заняты, они все время в настроении, акробатикой занимаются. Мы все это им дадим.
They do acrobatics. Yeah, I think gymnastics. I think Elisa still does. We're giving this to them all the time. Again, blurred lines. We. How is it we? Do they consider themselves to be co-parenting with Ella? Because Ricky wasn't in their lives very much at all. Not. He renounced parental rights around 2011 and went off to LA for a couple of years, seeking his fame and fortune and hooking in with the Shanghai Supreme Master Cult and Love for Haiti and Clinton Foundation connected organizations and who knows what else. And then when he came back and sought access again, it was only supposed to be every other Saturday for a few hours, but as the children disclosed, it turned out to be a daily nightmare at school. But here we go. We are giving this to them all the time. I don't know why. That's why I say the royal we is that. Did they consider themselves to be co-parenting with Ella? I don't know. The school is right near where we live. I don't believe they lived in Hampstead with Ella and the children, as far as I know, but I might be wrong.
Это есть рядом у нас школа, которая не требует.
Yeah, because she refers to it as our house as well. But Abraham lived upstairs. I think he rented a place in the house and then became involved with Ella. Maybe it was the parents' house, who knows? Maybe Ella lived there with the parents, who knows?
Там длинных.
There's not much travelling involved, it's very local. On top of that, Oh, bless. Now, they're talking about back in Russia now, I think. On top of that, we'll get security for the children if necessary.
Переходов, переездов по городу. Она находится рядом. И, кстати, девочки наши, охрана, мы...
I'll have to watch this again, because it seems that she flips between the activities the children were doing in Hampstead and the activities planned in Russia. Although I think the children did used to go for extended periods of time to Russia, maybe each summer, something like that. So she may, when she says our house, she may be referring to their home in Russia. I don't know.
Обеспечим, если будет необходимо. Если будет необходимо, мы думаем, что нам нужен будет психолог.
We think we may need a psychologist. Not half. We think, and we insist on that, we will start from health care, or start with health. Well, clearly, it can take a lifetime to recover from what the children alleged. And I think a spiritual approach is, obviously with professionals as well, but a spiritual approach is the only really successful route to healing from satanic ritual abuse. Again, that's my opinion.
Мы это тоже обеспечим. Мы так полагаем и настаиваем, чтобы детей создоровиться начнем. Мы думаем, что...
We think that it's the right decision. We insist on the children being given to us. God bless them. That must have been so frustrating. And to be let down by the Russian embassy as well. If they could bring their willpower and their good intentions and their care plan and everything to bear to save the children, and it didn't work. It's tragic. But the children were too dangerous, telling the truth, unless the authorities or the people were willing to dismantle the cult and the distribution of porn, drugs and snuff movies and the money laundering, unless the authorities and the people were willing to act on the children's disclosures, nothing else would make a difference. You can't just pick and rescue two, because there'll always be a danger, because they'll tell the truth. You have to dismantle the structure that the children expose. Of course, it would be better to rescue the children as well and get the children safe no matter what, and then let the grown-ups fix the mess, you know? If there's a will, there doesn't seem to be a will. Is there any more? This was back in 2015. This is 2021. We thought we almost got there. Please, let's not let this opportunity slide away again for us to deconstruct the evil that is trafficking and abusing children.
Это правильное решение, что настаиваем, требуем, чтобы детей отдали нам. Дело в том, что поменяв...
The point is, when you change the country you live in, it's a different culture, different mentality, different language, different friends, worries, loving people around them. Yeah, probably would have been the best option.
Поменяв страну, другая культура, другой менталитет, другая речь, другие друзья, заботы, любящие вокруг люди детей. И это будет...
This will only benefit the children. It would have been a completely change of everything from Hampstead.
Только на пользу. Это мы считаем, что это логично.
We think that this is logical. They keep bringing logic to it. This is the right thing to do. In this situation, it's very logical to give us our beloved grandchildren.
Что это правильно в данной ситуации, это очень логично. Отдать нам, наших любимых внуков. А мы приложим все силы, все...
We will put all our strength, all our capabilities, all our time into them, and I believe they would. I just have to say, in this time of repentance for everybody, myself included, everybody worldwide should be looking to see what could I have done better, where did I fall down, and no matter how idyllic Ella's childhood was, she came to London and she had children with 2 alleged members of a satanic ritual abuse cult in London, Hampstead. And so something didn't work with the idyllic childhood. Not to blame the parents. Sometimes children make bad choices all on their own when they're adults. But the key to moving forward always has to be, what could I have done? I ask myself, I've repented to my own children. I could have done better there. I'm so sorry for that. You know, we have to look in our own hearts as well as see what's wrong outside of us.
Возможности все свое время на то, чтобы
У нас есть такая
воспитать их
возможность.
And your granddad says we have the ability to achieve this.
и подарить им свою любовь.
We have all our time and to give them all our love, as most grandparents do. Most grandparents do have the time for their children or their grandchildren that they may not have had for their children, where they may have been busy working and mortgages and stress. But when you get to the grandparent level, you do have a huge part to play in your children's lives. It shouldn't be a parenting role, but it's in most cases better than the children being returned to an alleged abusing father, or to state care where statistics show they're mostly not safe. Since this film was made, the Russian embassy in London, now this was at the time, has been offering support to the grandparents and family. For further information and updates, please contact Belinda. Now, that was very encouraging news at the time, but then, strangely, the Russian embassy, consulate, whatever it's called, getting involved, went very quiet, and the aid was not forthcoming. And whether that can be laid at Belinda's door, a lot of allegations have been made that people that have gone to Belinda or people in her circle for support with satanic ritual abuse reports, Melanie Shaw going to UK Column, or the Doherty family, or so many people that have thought they were getting the best possible publicity and support and help, and somehow it hasn't materialised. If that was a cover-up, if that was an intended suppression, who knows? Who knows? But it is time for us not to leave it to governments, or it's time for every single person, every single conscious person to say, not on my watch, what can I do? So that's it, angelascaches.org. Please subscribe to this channel and the associate channel where the original is published, and all my lost archives are being uploaded, and a playlist of 60 plus Hampstead videos kindly supplied by a supporter from another country who had downloaded everything before it was scrubbed from the internet. So Angie Power Disney, and links below. Thanks so much. God bless. And please share this with anybody that can help. Please share this. If it helps, write to the Russian embassy in London. If it helps, just brainstorm and do whatever you think to do. It's time for us not to think, so-and-so is going to fix it, so-and-so is going to fix it. It's time for us to say, I've got an hour today, what can I do to make a difference in a child's life? God bless. Because it could be your grandchild next, or mine. God forbid.